In 1922, doctors on a small island in the Venetian lagoon began drilling into the skulls of mental patients without anesthesia. Records of how many never walked out are incomplete. Today, Italian law makes it nearly impossible to legally live on this island, and every person who's tried has left within months. Most cited reasons they struggle to explain. This is Poveglia, and its documented history is stranger than the legends built around it. 1576, the island becomes a quarantine. When bubonic plague tore through Venice in the 16th century, the city needed somewhere to send the dying and somewhere to send the dead. Poveglia, just over 2 kilometers from Venetian shoreline, became both. Ships suspected of carrying infection were forced to dock here under maritime law, a practice that gave us the word quarantine from the Venetian phrase 40 giorni, meaning 40 days of isolation. The sick were unloaded, separated by symptom severity, and largely left to die where they lay. Historical estimates suggest tens of thousands of plague victims were cremated on the island across multiple outbreaks, their ashes mixed directly into the topsoil. Soil samples taken centuries later still showed unusually high lime content, consistent with mass open-air burning on a scale rarely documented elsewhere in Europe. Local fishermen have long claimed that human bone fragments occasionally surface in the shallows surrounding the island, a claim Italian archaeologists have neither fully confirmed nor formally dismissed. What is documented in Venetian state records is this. By the 1700s, Poveglia was functioning as one of the primary plague quarantine stations in the Mediterranean. Available burial space ran out faster than bodies could arrive. Officials began stacking the dead in open pits rather than individual graves, a decision historians later cited as one of the earliest documented mass burial responses to epidemic overflow anywhere in Western Europe. Some accounts suggest the island was chosen specifically for its isolation because panicked mainland residents had reportedly begun attacking incoming quarantine boats rather than allow them to dock near populated shorelines. If you're new here, more forbidden and forgotten locations like this one are coming every week. Subscribe now so you don't miss them. 1922. Behind locked doors. 3 centuries after the plague, the Italian government converted Poveglia into a geriatric and psychiatric hospital. Official records confirmed the facility operated continuously for decades, but patient treatment logs from the institution are unusually sparse. Several pages from the 1930s are reportedly missing from the Venice State Archive, with no recorded explanation for their absence. Survivor testimony, passed down rather than formally documented, describes a chief physician who performed unauthorized lobotomies using basic hand tools, reportedly convinced that the island's buried history was the true source of his patient's psychiatric symptoms. Local legend holds that this same physician eventually threw himself from the hospital's bell tower, though no death certificate bearing his name has ever surfaced in municipal records. The hospital was permanently shut down in 1968, decades after comparable institutions elsewhere had already closed amid changing standards of psychiatric care. By that point, the facility had cycled through several uses and names. Former staff members interviewed in later decades gave conflicting accounts of how many patients were treated, transferred, or died on site. When restoration crews entered the abandoned wards decades later, they reportedly found patient restraints still bolted to bed frames, rusted surgical trays left mid-use, and basement walls scratched with markings that conservators have never been able to identify or explain. Here's a fact most people don't know. Poveglia has appeared on multiple international most dangerous places on Earth lists, not because of ghost stories alone, but because its documented quarantine and medical history is genuinely this severe. If that surprised you, hit like. Present day, no permission granted. In 2014, an Italian businessman won a 99-year lease on Poveglia at public auction. He intended to convert the hospital into a luxury resort. The project collapsed within 2 years. Financing fell through, and residents of nearby islands organized formal protests against any development on land they consider, in practical terms, a mass grave. Today, the island remains officially off-limits to unauthorized visitors. The regional government cites structural instability in the asylum buildings as its legal justification. But locals offer a different explanation entirely: that no public official wants to be held responsible for whatever else might be uncovered beneath it. Maritime charts still mark the surrounding waters with navigational cautions dating back generations. Language that long predates any modern safety concern about the crumbling buildings themselves. Boat operators who once ran unauthorized day tours have quietly stopped advertising them. Drone footage shot in recent years shows the hospital's interior largely untouched since its 1968 closure. Overturned furniture, corroded medical equipment, and corridors that, according to several pilots, registered unexplained temperature drops on thermal imaging. Whether that's measurement error or something else, Poveglia remains one of very few places in Italy where the government actively discourages tourism rather than profiting from it. A choice that runs against nearly every economic incentive a struggling lagoon community would otherwise have. That alone should tell you something important about what officials privately believe is still buried there. Most online content about Poveglia is recycled rumor with no real sourcing, just repeated claims with nothing behind them. The real history here doesn't require exaggeration to be disturbing, and that's exactly what makes this island so unsettling. There's another location we're covering next, a sealed underground facility, shut down by a national government after something went wrong inside it, and still legally classified as restricted today. We're not naming it yet, but it's worse than this one. Subscribe now, because the next forbidden place won't stay unnamed for long, and you'll want to be here when we open that door.